Welcome back to the MoF'er Podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at MoFpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. So let's get right down to brass tacks. Andrew's not here because he had adult things to do.
And I'm better looking.
I'm going to let you and him fight that one out at a later date. I'm Phil Rabalais. On the other side of the mic is Eddie Davenport, who, per the show title, he ran off and got famous. But before we get to that, let's just jump right into it. Eddie, tell the listeners who aren't familiar with you, anything about you you're comfortable being on public record. Let's have it like that.
Sure. I think some of the guys I've been on the show before, so some you guys would know me as I'm the shooting therapist. I am a mental health and substance use therapist. I'm a board member of Walk the Talk America, which is the intersection of guns and mental health. We pride ourselves on trying to stop negative outcomes of guns and work with suicide advocacy and stuff like that. But we do that without passing more walls and trying to just make people take more personal responsibility when it comes to firearms, which we all love. And as far as myself goes, I've been shooting stuff all my life. I've been part of the Matter of Fact crew for 4 years now.
It's been more than a hot minute now.
Yeah, it's been a while. You guys have been putting up with me for a while, to the point where the guys that are in the Patreon, you guys know all the inside jokes at this point, which are not going to be said today.
No. Most of those are good right behind closed doors. But yeah, it has been a good long while. I don't even remember how you showed up on our radar. We showed up on yours. I just remember you popped up, and quite frankly, we abused you at first because that's just. You've turned around giving it to all the other guys when they first come in. A little bit of abuse and a little bit of good-natured ribbing is just normal. It's going to happen.
I am the one that started the tradition of what you have to do when you become a Patreon.
Yes, you did start that. And then Mom came into the group, and you thought you were going to have to clean up your act. Mom being Mrs. Matter of Facts.
Yeah, it was nice to finally meet Mom in person this year at a prepper camp. She came up, was like, "Hey, son," because I didn't know. I wasn't paying attention. That was her at first. I just had this woman walk up to me with this little girl and says, "Hey, son," and gives me a hug, and I'm like, "Who? Oh."
she can definitely roll with the punches. But Eddie, you are to this date the only guest I've ever had on the show that has coated me and my equipment in beer in mid-show. And the frustrating part of it is I didn't even get to hear the joke that sets you off, and you can't remember it.
It was...
Was it camera appropriate?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Let's see. So the joke was not what set me off. It was the after fact of, I forget who said it. It was like, "Damn it, Double D, get it together." It was like,
oh, Lord.
So if you don't realize what's going on is at prepper camp, there's 15 different conversations going on during the live broadcast, the live feed or whatever we were doing that night. And I was one of the ones off in the corner. We're having our own conversation while getting evil glares from Phil because we're probably getting hype mic'd.
It wasn't egregious, but yeah, there's just a bit of that general tomfoolery that always happens when we record those big roundtable sessions out of prepper camp. You're going to get a little bit of hot mic.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I've never had a person react like that on the show. It was interesting. So I know you've been shooting for a long time. You kind of tickled us a while back about the fact that you got an invitation to go do something really cool, and you wouldn't tell us what it was or who it was with. You just alluded to the fact that it'd be on television.
Well, I didn't do that until after I could actually talk about it. Let's be clear.
Okay. I might be mashing the timelines together.
Yeah. I was just letting you guys little tickles of, "Hey guys, I'm about to do something cool." And you're like, "Well, tell us about it." And I'm like, "I can't." We're like, "Well, that's lame."
Well, as soon as you said non-disclosure agreement, I started putting some of the pieces in place very quickly because NDAs, from my business background, that's something I'm familiar with. And I know that there's only so many things you would be doing that would involve an NDA.
Yeah.
So I put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly. You couldn't tell us anything. You finally came out and told us after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, let's just show the viewers and for the listeners, I'll have to fill you in on the backside.
Are you ready?
Each week, dead center, we'll bring 4 of the world's best marksmen to this ranch.
Ooh, that's it. Got it.
To compete with historical weapons using primitive knives, bows, and even centuries-old firearms. The world's best marksmen shoot like mountain men.
Mountain Man, Ultimate Marksman. New series premieres Thursday, November 3rd at 9:30. Only on the History Channel.
So you ran off and did a thing. Huh?
You're getting fancy with this stuff, Phil, making all the screens switch around and everything.
Well, I mean, come on. I can't just rest on my laurels. I got to keep trying to bump it up to keep everybody entertained. But yeah, that was the intro for Mountain Men, Ultimate Marksman on History Channel. Mm-hmm. And Eddie, you ran off and did a thing, got yourself famous.
Yeah, I ran off and did a thing. I ran off and we've got flown to Montana and had fun, and it was fantastic. And I mean, at this point, we're episode 3 is tonight, so I can let the cat out of the bag if you don't already know. I did actually win my episode, which was great.
I know I got to watch it. It's one of those weird experiences in my life though, because like I know you, and I also know enough of your backstory to know that to say you're a fair shot is kind of underplaying it. Like, call it what it is, not totally blow your head up, but like you're very, 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 very good at shooting. And that's the kind of thing that happens when you've been shooting as long as you have and competing, and you know, like you put yourself up against some of the best marksmen in the country. And it wasn't a huge surprise that you won. I was kind of shocked to see the company you were shooting in, because I mean, dang.
Yeah, the one that was the biggest shocker was Melinda from my episode, because we know each other personally, like outside of Mountain Man. Like me and Bradley were the other guy he's basically the bigger giant version, more extra version of Eddie. Yeah, we were good friends now, but extroverted, I think is the word. There we go. English is hard, Phil. But me and Melinda knew each other from like the shooting organization we're in. So like when we saw each other, we were like, oh crap. Because it's now bragging rights for life. And I'm the editor for our organization's magazine. And it is definitely in this issue coming out.
So it was simultaneously, oh God, I have to shoot against her. And oh, if I pull this off, this is going to be sweet.
Yeah, it was as soon as we saw each other, we were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Oh, crap, this sucks.
This is going to be awesomely awkward.
Yeah, and then we met the other 2 people, which is they described Bradley as like a primitive weapons or a weapons expert or antique weapons. I forget the exact word they said, but he knows old guns and he loves old guns. It's me and him bonded over that immensely. But what they didn't say is that the man, he's not a professional hunter himself, but he's been to Africa, I think like 5 or 6 times, and he goes in these like really big hunts. And so, I mean, the man's got chops. He knows how to like shoot difficult shots against dangerous animals that want to kill you. And then, of course, the last one was Jenny, who is an Olympic gold medalist. Like, I mean, that you don't earn gold medals for nothing.
No, like I said, I mean, you were shooting at some pretty rare field company, and just watching the episode, it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to see when somebody really kind of knows their craft. And I know that the way, which I'd like to get into a little more later, but like the way History Channel kind of cut those shots back and forth, because I'm sure you've seen the episode, but it doesn't fully convey how difficult some of the shots were.
Yeah, like
I know from experience, shooting offhand at anything over about 75, 100 yards is freaking difficult for most people. It's nigh on impossible for an amateur shooter. It's something that takes skill, and it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of muscle conditioning and a lot of self-control. It takes a lot of fundamentals. It's not an easy thing. Like, I think Hollywood has really screwed this hobby by making it look easy to people. But the truth of the matter is, it's not an easy thing, and it takes years of discipline and practice to truly get good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the And then on top of that, you're adding in the pressure of, a time limit or flames, which we did not know about that like at all. Like I'll get into that when we talk about it, but that one was like our reactions on screen were real. They were not faked.
No, and I mean, just like above and beyond just the nerves of, like you said, having a clock or having a time limit or having any kind of competitive element into it. Like some of the things I saw, like there was one shot in particular, they had you shooting through a rotating disc that had a hole cut in it.
Mm-hmm.
So shooting fundamentals say that you're supposed to like control your breathing. You shoot at a natural pause. You ease into the trigger so that it naturally breaks and kind of quote unquote surprises you. Although there's argument to be made against that shooting technique, but like everything about traditional shooting technique tells you you're going to pull that shot as gently and progressively and slowly as humanly possible for maximum accuracy. And then on top of all that, you have a time limit and you have a little hole that's moving around that you have to put the shot through. And I looked at that, and what jumped out at me was, I'm like, I know how difficult that is. I don't know how to convey that to the audience, because there's a segment of the audience that watched that were probably guys like you, like me, like most of your patrons, people that have a reasonable amount of experience in firearms and shooting, that look at that and say, that is a tricky freaking shot. I would not want to be that poor SOB standing there trying to pull that off in front of cameras. And then the average person is just like, oh, he made it. It's like, what do you mean? Oh, he made it. That's freaking, that's tricky. That's challenging. That's hard. Like, walk up and pat that man on the back and hand him a beer. That was not an easy shot to make. And I don't know how to convey that to people.
And Melinda went 4 for 4 on that one. I actually missed one of the shots. So any of my friends will know me. My historic miss is low and to the left. And what it is because if I snap the trigger instead of gently pulls, I go low and to the left. And if you watch, they show the misses on the thing. My miss was low and to the left. And I was really upset about myself because I needed to, I knew this was my round to win.
Oh, I could tell. I missed your exclamation until you pointed it out to me and went back and watched it again. But I could just, like, knowing you, I could just feel the frustration oozing through the screen. Like, ooh, he's mad at himself right now.
And there's arguments to be made. Do you shoot better or worse when you're mad? And there's arguments definitely to be made with myself. Do I shoot better or worse when I'm mad? I don't know, but I definitely I start concentrating more when I'm mad.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, whatever forces you to, like, really focus on what you're doing is the best way to do it. But I don't know. I always go back to the whole argument about martial arts. Like, when I was studying martial arts years ago, what they always beat in our heads was, if you get mad, you stop thinking. If you get mad, you get stupid. Like, your job is to maintain your composure and be able to constantly think so that you're looking at your opponent and he's broadcasting his movements and you're anticipating them because you're watching him. You're not just reacting to him. Shooting's slightly different, except for the fact that if your heart rate goes up, if your blood pressure goes up, if your breathing rate goes up, we get into the territory where jitters and hand movements and everything's more common. And it's debatable how much of an impact that has at shorter ranges shooting offhand. But like, if you're shooting, say, PRC and you're shooting long range and you're trying to make, 3 or 4 bullets touch each other at a couple hundred yards, that all those biological factors become a problem. That's when settling yourself down really has come into play. But we just totally went way off the reservation on that one.
We can pull it back. The thing the History Channel did really good, but also, like, it stinks because us, like me, knowing how difficult that course was, they made the course seem more open than it was, because like they needed to show the audience. But like it was either the second or third shot, I forget which. I'd have to go back and watch, but like one of the ones that like our opening was like this big through a pile of branches. It was like shooting a deer through like a brush. And then there was one that like I had to stoop down a little, and Bradley almost had to like bend his knees completely to like drop below branches to shoot. And like, that's a good shooting foundation, a solid platform, like standing up straight, blah, blah, blah. Not knees crunched, bent over like this, hanging over, upside down.
But the thing I like about that on the other side is, that's very representative of hunting.
Yeah.
Because you and I both know you don't always get, the deer doesn't always walk out in the middle of the open and stand up nice and proud broadside to you and behave himself. They tend to make your lives as a hunter a little bit difficult. But the other thing is, like, as far as like practical or combat shooting, there is no such thing as a great shot. It is the shots you have and the shots you don't. and you're always going to be shooting from cover and concealment. You're always going to be peeking your head out. You're always going to be trying to get shot off, and you're going to be under fire while doing it. So like those kinds of things you're describing to me, it's like, yeah, that sucks from a competition perspective. But on the other hand, it really separates kind of the wheat from the chaff as far as shooting, because a novice, a well-trained person can make a shot. But when you add pressure and unconventional, when you take convention out of the equation, you take a person off of a flat range or off of a shooting bench, and you make them bend over and crouch down underneath this branch and try to shoot through the brush, you really start to see who's, I hate to say it, but like who's better than the next person. It's a degree of difficulty that the average person does not expose themselves to, but hunters and competition guys have to.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, your mom's in?
No, your wife is in.
Oh, your other mom. One day, I'm going to have to explain to the audience how that whole thing came about.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready for that conversation yet.
No, but I screwed up by not introducing you as my illegitimate son. That was like a total missed opportunity. So I've got queued up the last of the shoots that y'all did, your part, because I want to show the audience. But before we get into that, we kind of talked about the competitors. What about the hosts? I mean, I recognize Mark from somewhere, but I can't figure out where. Mm-hmm. And I did a little bit of digging into Colby, and I understand kind of his background, but like, what was it like working with the two of them? Because that's a rare opportunity to get to meet two people that are that recognizable.
Yeah. So Colby, some people, depending on who you are, you'll recognize him from, like, he was a competitor on Survivor, I think 3 times. And then the most recognizable in the shooting world was he was the host of Top Shot for a number of years. He's also like a fantastic shot himself. He owns a ranch that he brings people out and does these crazy competitions on anyways. And Mark Romano, the cool, like, I was really excited to meet Colby. I was like meeting a hero to meet Mark because he's a world champion cowboy action shooter. Most of the stuff he does now is Wild Bunch, which is it's based off the movie The Wild Bunch, but he used 1911s and pump shotguns and still run through the course. But that's his fancy thing. But like Mark is definitely it was intimidating to meet him. Not in like a bad way, but like it's like, hey, you're meeting a guy that you've followed his results and you've seen his YouTube videos and watched his competitions and stuff like that. And like, so it was really cool that I was really happy. Like as a viewer, I would have, if you see these shows and you're always afraid they're going to bring someone in who's just going to phone it in, who doesn't really know what they're doing, doesn't know what they're talking about. And with these guys, you can trust they actually knew what they were doing, knew what they were saying. Some of the conversations we had behind the camera, like candid conversations, Mark, the man is he needs to be on this show. Like he is he's a fountain of knowledge when it comes to stuff. He's like as probably as like red-blooded American as you. Like when it comes to like the freedom by Amazon needs to ship machine guns to your house kind of thing.
I'm sure I'm going to get demonetized for that, but thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Yes. I wear my reputation like a scar, either a scarlet A or a big S on my chest. Like I am that pro gun person that makes other pro gun people nervous. But sometimes you have to blaze a trail, and I just can't help but think that, I mean, like you and I've had this conversation, like my interest in firearms is not for competition. It never was. It probably never will be. My interest has always been, the ability to defend your home, the ability to defend your loved ones, the ability to defend your community. Like it's really like, it's things that sound kind of crazy to some people in this modern age where we think to ourselves that isn't necessary anymore. But I always go back to the idea that like, I'm sorry, but like, it's been my observation that everybody is their own first responder at the end of the day. Like no one is going to be able to get to you faster than you if you get in trouble. So like, why wouldn't we encourage our neighbors and our sons and our daughters and our parents and everybody we know to know basic firearm skills and know basic gun safety?
I mean, you've had that discussion, like with you lived through Katrina and stuff like that, but like I lived in the coast of Carolina. We've had all the hurricanes that knock stuff down. There was like roaming bands of like hooligans breaking in and like doing very bad things. And I think at one point it was like assaulting old women, like that type of old bad things. And they walked up on our yard, and the only thing that kept them from like coming and messing with my wife and myself was the fact that I had an AR strapped to my chest sitting outside by a campfire.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like you
I may seem crazy, but like at the same time, I didn't get messed with, and they broke into the house 2 doors down.
And see, me at the end of the day, like I always couch things in this perspective of like, I think it's really important that me as a husband and a father be prepared to defend my family. I also believe that it's my responsibility to teach my little girl how to defend herself, because dad's not always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And if, God forbid, years down the road, she has a husband and kids of her own, and something happens, I want her to be able to protect herself. And also, if that doesn't happen, because I'll happily admit that is not a common circumstance for the average person, but I always tell people, I'm like, even if you don't think you need a firearm to defend yourself, you still teach your kids gun safety.
Mm-hmm.
Because how many parents would take the time to explain to their kids about don't take weird pills you find lying around people's houses, or don't do drugs because drugs are bad, or will look both ways before you cross the street. But then you wouldn't think to yourself, I better tell my kid that some people don't believe in securing their firearms and don't touch it and go find an adult. You know, like it's the same conversation I've had with I had with somebody years ago, and I was like, you know, I don't keep like crack cocaine lying around my house, but I'm going to tell my kid about drugs because I don't want her to get hurt by stuff she doesn't know about. Guns are the same thing. Like, you should teach gun safety just because it's out there, and it's a risk.
Yeah, I do the same thing with the families of my clients and stuff like that. I'm in Western North Carolina. Like 90% of the households probably have a gun. And I'm not. That's probably not being north of like exaggeratory. Like, I'm sure either that or they're around a house that does. I mean, like 3 years ago, they said like over 50% of Americans either live in a house with a gun or own a gun, something like that. And then the pandemic buying spree. So like, it's gotten a whole lot more. But like, I always talk to my families like, secure your firearms, but and I hate the word safe storage. I don't use safe storage, but use responsible storage. Because like the way I look at it is like, let's just use the thing like, hey, you have a pistol for home defense, okay? And you have a little 3-year-old running around the house, and so you put the gun up on top of a shelf, like the thing right there. I put it on top of that. Don't think that's a safe, just think it's a shelf. I put the gun up there on top of that. Is it safe? Technically, because it's up high, it's inside a secured house. Technically, it's safe. Is it responsible? Not really, because I mean, so it could still be accessed easy. So like, that's why I always use responsible. It makes it so like, if it's not responsibly stored, think about how you can make it more responsible so that like you don't have a negative outcome at the end of the day. And that's always teach my families with that. And then especially if they start shooting, or if they have someone that does and their kid's going to be around a gun, teach them that basic safety rules, just so that like, I mean, not so much like, hey, you can trust your own kid, but what happens if they go to our friends who are like, hey, let me go see this, like, let's go see this gun that my uncle left around the home. That's where most accidents come from.
You're being needled by my co-host who's doing adult stuff right now.
No, I see it.
Punk. No, but I mean, it's just, and like we've had you on before to talk about Walk the Talk America, and I believe we actually ended up having
you had Michael Cedeno come on.
I was about to say, okay, I was thinking it was the president, but I didn't want to misspeak, so I was digging in the back of the brain box. But I mean, you know, it's one of those organizations that like, I can't say that. I'm pretty sure from looking in the organization, there's probably a couple of people affiliated with it that like I would not see eye to eye on with everything. But then again, I don't see eye to eye with most of my own immediate family, so I can't hold that against anybody. But like, I guess I was looking at it as like, if you're trying to do something positive in the pro gun space, I have to at least give you some ground and say, let's see what ideas you have. And one of the things that y'all brought up, I know we're going to the Wayback Machine on this, but like one of the things y'all brought up with this whole idea of like how like some of the laws in place regarding like universal background checks or firearms transfers are actually counterproductive to some of y'all's goals, because if you have a person who, let's say they are self-identifying, they're having a mental health crisis, and they say, I'm not in a good way, Eddie, please hold on to my guns until I'm feeling better. In some states, that's a felony. That like, here, Eddie, hold this for me so I don't do something stupid with it is a felony. And it's moments like that where it's like, okay, whether or not the intention of the law was good or not, this is the unintended consequence of it, or even though it was unintended, this is the consequence of it, is that we're over here on this side of the fence trying to say, be responsible with your firearms, look out for your buddies, make good decisions, check in for your mental health. And then the other side, we're making laws that make, hey, hold this gun for me, a felony. And then we are trying to make it to where a person who goes and checks himself for mental health evaluation can't even have firearms anymore.
And if we're jumping down that route, let's go to New York, the New York Safe Acts and stuff like that. It is absolutely horrible. Like, we've had 2 people in our podcast that's gone down that route. And I have my sister-in-law's studying to be a social worker up in New York. And my degrees are in social work. So I'm I get fairly heated when these conversations come up. If you go try to get help because, hey, like, you're having a mental crisis or you're having like a panic attack, whatever, you need help. You've identified I need help. You go get help. And now you're blacklisted from ever owning a firearm just because you chose to get help. How is that actually producing the fact and wanting us to like get help? Like, if we're slapping in the wrist and like we're taking away constitutional rights because you chose to get help instead of like having a psychotic break and hurting someone. Again, we're going way off down the rabbit trail on this, and we can go way farther. But
since you went there, you have to let me get one more thing in. Then we'll go back to topic. But I'm a military veteran. I'm a military veteran that has admitted out loud that, like, I've been counseled for post-traumatic stress disorder years and years ago, and I've encouraged many friends to go get counseling because I don't want to.
It's in my bio on WTTA that I had it. So
yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want a friend of mine to become a nurse statistic. We have lost entirely too many military veterans over the years and way too many first responders while we're down that road, because police, firefighters, EMS are just as susceptible to it. Mm-hmm. And unlike military veterans that eventually you come out of the combat zone, first responders, they live in the combat zone for their shift every day. That's what they do, is live in the combat zone. Yeah. And I mean, call it what it is. Yeah, there's people that grow up in really, really bad situations that develop a lot of the same symptoms. But I guess my point of view is like, if I'm going to look a person in the eye and encourage them to get counseling so they can be a productive member of society and hold a job and hold a marriage and, live their lives, then you can't turn around and beat them over the head and say, well, because you did the responsible thing, we're going to screw with you for the rest of your life. It's just, to me, it's frustrating because it's like, what you're saying in your actions is you'd rather this person do unfortunate things to themselves or somebody else than be a responsible adult and say, I need help and go get help. And it frustrates me. But anyway,
I guess we should say the views expressed here are not the expressed views of the History Channel, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Just saying. But since we had talked earlier about the fact that I had clipped out your segment from that very last shoot, I want to show it to the audience. And afterwards, our mics are muted for this, by the way. So, like, if you want to like poke in your comments, go for it. But afterwards, I wanted to talk about it because, like, I look at that and I know how daggum difficult of a shoot that was, but I don't know if the whole audience realizes it. Especially that last shot, by the way, because I couldn't tell how far away it is. The camera cutting made that a little tricky, but like, do you know?
It's roughly, I can't remember if it was 50 yards or 60 yards, but it's showing the heat shimmer and stuff like that. It may have been a little bit farther, but it was still a small gong.
Okay. What was it? It would look like it was straight wall case, lever action.
It was a 45 long called Henry, like a lever, like the first lever actions. But they came out in roughly 1862.
Yeah, in other words, older than any living human being is.
Is a look of intensity. Ready to go? Going into the third and final round. $10,000 on the line. It's time to go to work. Head on up.
So you'd be a fool not to be scared going up against Jenny in this challenge. The woman can shoot. She's won a gold medal for USA. I am scared to go against her in this final challenge. The winner of this wins the competition. I got to win if I want to take home the money.
Here we go.
So before that starts, you had a comment?
Yeah, so I was going to say 2 things. One, the hat I'm wearing actually means a lot to me in that segment. The hat I wore out there, the competition. So the shooting comp style I do is usually team events. I do have individual national championships, but I have a couple team event styles. And that hat was my shooting partner for 3 years. His name was Bobby. He passed away from cancer a few years ago, and I have his hat. And so it meant a lot to me to take that hat out on the show. And I actually mentioned on the show it just got cut in editing, which I get. They have to edit things down. You can't have everything. I mean, we filmed for 4 days, which the show made it seem like it was one day. They did a fantastic job. But we actually filmed for, 3 days. And
so y'all had to wear the exact same clothes for 4 days.
Yeah. So there's a lot of segments that they don't get into the thing, and that's fine. That's TV. You know, they get a lot of audio to see to make a good story, and like the shooting stuff, it was all one take, and I was kind of getting down there. The other thing they said is that's a look of intensity. They did allow us to practice the gun each time before going in, just to like make sure that you were familiar with the event you were not familiar with, so everyone's on an even ground. We did not get to practice through fire. We did not know there was going to be fire until they said it right beforehand. So there was like all of us are going like, what? And that's when they dropped the ball on us on that one. But the reason there's a look of intensity is in my practice round, the gun was not hitting for me. I missed like 3 times out of like the 4 shots I was given. And so I was in the background, like, like playing around, like looking at, like doing my shots, like playing with like, okay, if the gun doesn't hit here, I'm going to go here. And just like thinking through my head what I'm going to do, how I'm going to aim, what Kentucky winners I'm throwing in. And then not even add the fact of like, what's this fire going to do?
I mean, are they completely destroy your sight picture? Not much. It's all there for looks.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
3, 2, 1. Go!
Not to mention we have to load the thing too. And so like the campfire there, like it opens up. Like the
Eddie,
first shot you can see the wind
flames
there,
are up.
see.
Wind is blowing.
Eddie strikes on his first shot. Misses on his second.
I'm about to get really pissed here.
Misses on his third. Trying to find the target through those flames.
You got it.
That's a hit. 30 seconds.
Okay, last target, way downrange. Nobody's hit it yet.
There it is. Nice.
So I actually initially missed your little outburst when you missed that first shot.
I was really pissed at myself because so how you're shooting through those flames is like if you ever watched a campfire, the flames open up and close again. And so the first shot on the left is the only one you can truly see because there's a strong crosswind coming in, and then it kind of disappears back and forth. Like you could really see a good example of that when Bradley was shooting. Actually, I know you don't have this thing, but his was like a solid flame wall the entire time. Mine had a little bit of a breeze, which I mean, I'll take it. But I was aiming at the thing, and then the thing opened up on it, and then it closed up on me as I pulled the trigger, and so I didn't hear a thing. That's why I was so mad, because I was like, I jerked it trying to get it through that shot, and it just messed up. And then, so that final shot, like, it was, man, like I saw where it was, and then I completely lost it. So I'm sitting there just taking a breath and waiting for it to open up, and I'm not seeing it. So I just squeeze and like hope I hit it.
Yeah, and this is one of the funny things about firearms is that, like, if it's a firearm that you have shot a fair amount of time, I can't express to the non-initiated how much familiarity you gain when you're shooting your firearm.
Yeah.
And you become very familiar with the trigger and the brake and all little intricacies because, firearms are not magic. They're little collections of steel and wood and plastic and springs and cams and levers. I mean, it's a mechanical thing, and every one of them's a little bit different.
And most of the time you can make it so that you actually get to aim at the target because you can, drift the sights and stuff, or in these old guns, you file the sights down to make it fit. For me, I was aiming about 2 inches to the right and 3 inches low. Every single shot. So do that with flames in the way and not knowing where stuff's at was not fun.
Yeah. Learning how to Kentucky windage on the fly like that is definitely a skill set, but it's one of those things that you, like, again, the average person is never in that situation where you have to pick up somebody else's gun and compete against 3 other pretty freaking good marksmen themselves on the fly, under
Mhm.
pressure, with 10 grand on the line, with flames, with, like go down the list. It's like I said, Eddie, I mean, not to shine you on, I'm kind of impressed. Like I knew you were good, but that was not, none of that looked like an easy competition.
No, and it was not. So my local newspaper today, they printed online, and the print story will come out this weekend. They printed a story about this, and like my boss like texted all out to everyone. I was like, hey, look, we have this cool article, blah blah. And the first thing I said is like, if I never see flames again, I'll die too early.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, I have my wood stove out there burning because it's 19 degrees outside.
Yeah. But like I said, man, I mean, I wanted to have you on the show and kind of talk to you about it because honestly, it was a pretty cool experience. And the fact that you won just a cherry on top of the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure it's more than a cherry on top to you because there were a lot of emotions tied up in that.
Yeah, it is.
You were not only shooting against a good friend, but an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, and Bradley, but the third day, me and him had become good friends. Like at this, like I mean, he's like we text and talk almost every day. Like we've become like brothers. So like there was a lot of emotions tied up in the whole thing, and it was tough. And then like also like the crew and stuff. Like you started to get close to these crews. So, like it's a lot of emotions tied up. Now you're shooting for a lot of money. I'll say this, like I've won 7 national championships. Okay. Like let's start tooting the horn a little bit. I've won 7 national championships. I started counting them today because I have a potential sponsor wanting to know what all I've done. Overall, I stopped counting after about 42. I've won 42 gold medals between not gold medals, but top 3 places between nationals and regionals and other events. I only went back to 2014. I stopped counting I went back to 2012 and I stopped counting because like I can't find the other records. This accomplishment honestly means more than those other accomplishments. I mean, there's one national championship. This doesn't mean more than, and that's because I won it shooting beside Bobby and I shot beside my dad. Like that, you're not going to take that one away from me. But this means so much to me because it's like it is almost like the cherry on top, because you can say, but like this meant I have made it. I've done something. I've accomplished this.
So at no point in time have we gotten into like, how did this happen? Like, did you audition for it? Did they reach out to you? Like, you haven't told me how that little exchange worked out. And there's several of our friends who've been curious. How exactly did that work out?
Okay. Yeah. Josh was the one asking specific questions. I said, you'll find out later. They reached out to me on social media. I do have a friend. I have friends in a couple different episodes, but I have one specific friend that mentioned their name to me, that they were looking for like a black powder expert. And he says, I know the guy. So he mentioned the name to me. That reached out to me. I did have to do like an audition, like a casting pitch in a sense. But like for me, my time frame was basically about a month and a half from like hearing about this opportunity to filming it. Some people waited 3 months because like when they got to them, like I was picked up fairly close to the end, and it was a really unique experience. I mean, because at no point did I know I was going to be on until like I think like 2 weeks ahead of time, because like they were narrowing down people. Like there was a lot of people that auditioned. They had to make a lot of decisions.
So a friend of yours dimed you out, in other words.
Yeah.
Good friend.
Good friend. If I don't know what episode he's on yet, and so I don't want to I think he's got to be in the later episodes because he hasn't been in the first 3. I had a friend in the last episode who got second, unfortunately.
I mean, second in some of this company, you can't get too upset about.
Yeah, because second doesn't take cash prize, though, unfortunately.
True, but I think if you'd lost your friend, the plate of crow you would have had to eat would have been worse than walking home without 10 grand.
Oh yeah. Melinda, you just wait. So like, she was lucky the show did not come out before our nationals. But I'm the editor of the magazine. I control this. Oh, it's gonna be fun.
No,
who's gonna tell the editor he can't print something, right?
I mean, technically.
Yeah, once it gets to print.
So where do you go from here? Like, has there been any discussion of like, further work in this vein down the road, or has there been discussion of like bringing past champions back on, like History Channel does on occasion?
So as of right now, none of that's been discussed. We're hoping the show becomes a huge success. I wanted to see it keep coming. If nothing else, I just want to keep watching it. Speaking of which, make sure you watch it tonight. It's 9:30 Eastern. Tonight is the bows or not bows. Tonight is like hatchets and knives. So that's going to be kind of cool because I'm sure they do some wild crap that they can do a whole lot more stuff with that because they're not shooting firearms. I cannot wait to see some of the torture they get thrown through. But for the answer to the question, what's next for me? I am a sponsored shooter. Currently, I shoot for teammuzzleloaders.com. And so in the spring, I will go to the NMLRA National Championship, which is the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association. So they host a championship every year in Friendship, Indiana. So I'll be shooting with them on their the team for a couple different events, and I have some that I'm shooting by myself. Of course, I have the stuff I always do with the Civil War style firearms, the North-South Skirmish Association. The big thing that I'm working on right now, I'm not a part of the team, so this is just something I'm shooting towards. But we're working on, and they're getting me targets so that I can hopefully shoot myself onto the team, because a good friend of mine who was part of the team really wants me to be on it so we can win a medal, is the International Muzzleloading Team. So in August of 23 is the tryouts for it. And then in 24, I believe that the competition is being held in Indonesia or something. And so that is my goal was to try to shoot myself onto that team and to, try to win it's essentially the Olympics for black powder firearms. I try to win an actual gold medal for that. It's because they give you legit gold medals and silver medals and bronze medals.
So, just little piddly stuff, in other words.
Yeah, no big plans, just, hunting, shooting, stuff like that.
Adulting.
Yeah. No, so it's been kind of humbling, the response from the shooting community. It's been kind of humbling, the response from the shooting community about all this. I've had different companies reach out to me. I think I've talked to you about that stuff. I've had a friend of mine that won Top Shot reach out and try to walk me through how to handle some of these things, and he gave me some really good advice. The request to be on different podcasts and stuff, which was already happening because of my work with the WTTA, but it's kind of it's really kicked off this. And there's I'm doing another one Sunday. So it's cool and humbling. And I don't want to overstate, I'm not enjoying this. Let's be honest, this is kind of cool, but at the same time, it's really humbling to think that I've always I knew I was good. I wanted to prove I was good, but I still I'm just a guy that likes to shoot and likes to be an ambassador for the sport.
Yeah, well, like I told you right when you popped it off to us, I was like, well, we're all super proud of you, because we've known you for a good handful of years, and frankly, you're a likable enough guy. I was super impressed that I was super impressed that you won, given who you were shooting against. Not that I didn't think you had it in you, but at the end of the day, when the firing pin hits the primer, it's anybody's game. It's who showed up that day to play and who didn't. Can you tell us again the name of the show, episode, and where we can watch? Thankfully, I prepared a banner for this because I knew I was not going to remember this. The show is called Mountain Men Ultimate Marksman, Thursdays, 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the History Channel.
And if you want to watch my episode, it's Fire and Mayhem. I am the first episode, so you can find mine a little bit easier because they're starting to release more clips and stuff out there if you don't actually have History Channel.
Yeah, and matter of fact, the two clips that we showed on this show came off of YouTube, so it's publicly accessible. It's out there. It's not the whole. It's not the whole thing, but it's definitely enough to demonstrate what these marksmen were up against in this competition. And
if you really just want to watch my specific episode, I believe you can find it on if you just Google the episode, I think you can buy it off one app for $2. That's what my wife did. So that we always have a copy of the episode.
I know it was on Hulu and God knows what else. It's not hard to find if you really want to watch it. And even though we have not had cable in this house in 6-7 years now, it was definitely worth tracking down to watch. not just because you're in it, but you know.
Yeah.
So we got some time to kill. What else do you want to get into? What else do you want? Like what else? What else has been going on since the last time we saw each other? Which, I mean, we
last month,
about
2 months ago.
Has it only been 2 months? Because it's been a while. 2 months.
I mean, I did get to buy my dream rifle last night.
What was it?
So it's a Kibler Southern Mountain rifle. So it's a flintlock rifle based off the design that was built in Buncombe County, North Carolina, which is the county like 10 minutes from my house. Like, it's a rifle designed in the county I live in, and it's a 40 caliber old style, like 1800 style flintlock rifle. And I've always wanted a really classic looking flintlock rifle, and there's plenty that you can buy out there that, don't get me wrong, like Pedersoli makes a fantastic one. Navy Arms makes a couple ones, and like there's a couple like smaller knockoffs. I'm not gonna mention names because I don't want to insult any companies. Kibler long rifles are probably like one of the top tiers. I'm not gonna like name off who I would think was better, but like if his name comes up as like some of the top tiers of the firearm community for gun kits.
So the question is this like I bought it, I'm going to shoot the hell out of it? Is this a wall hanger? Is this a safe queen? Is this it's worth so much in sentimental value I'm scared to screw it up?
So first off, it won't fit in my safe because it's so damn long once it's finished built.
Oh yeah.
Second off, I compete with original guns that were used and carried in the Civil War, so nothing's a safe queen. There is no such thing as wall hangers in my house. If it's even the ones like of Damascus barrels, we shoot those because we know how to reload them. There is no. This gun actually will be used. So I'm going to use it at the NMLRA championship, and there's an event with the international team that I can use this style rifle on that I'm going to try to use and try to compete with it hopefully in 24 with it.
See, that's to me, I love that, because one of the things that before I was into firearms to the degree I am now, I was in the car world. And one of the things that always used to drive me the craziest was you get this guy that has like a classic Porsche or classic Ferrari, and it just stays in the garage, and the California dust it like twice a month, and the tires have flat spots because it never freaking drives, and it's pee and oil all over the place because all the seals are dried up because it never runs. Mm-hmm. And I just look at a person like that and I'm like, this thing was built to be driven like an a-hole. Like, you should take it out and scare old ladies with it. That's what these cars are for. And that's like, I understand the idea where somebody gets a really freaking expensive firearm or something that's really cool or precious to them, but I just can't wrap my skull around, I bought this gun and it's an awesome gun, and I refuse to take it out to the range.
Yeah. I mean, like, my pride and joy gun I have is a Pedersoli Sharps and 4570. And not only are they like super expensive, really good looking, beautiful firearms, my granddad gave it to me. It was his gun originally. He gave it to me. I know you know this, but maybe our listeners don't. My granddad passed away 2 weeks ago, and so that gun has been out since then. And I don't really have a range for a 4570 behind my house, but damn it, if it shot steel that day.
Yeah.
The neighbor behind my house was not a fan, but she sings at the top of her lungs anyway, so she can, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you found a person that you can't make happy, so you just quit trying.
Yeah. So that's the one, like, when my dad, like, we built the Stuart's gonna hate this, but like the A2 clones, but like, you know, the flat top with the carry handles. My dad really wanted like an infantryman's rifle, so a straight stock rifle. So we bought the kits and we built them together because my dad's never built one and he wanted to build it, and like, hey, this was a cool thing to do. We went behind the house and just like mag dumped, like, you know, we each of us had 4 mags and just mag dumped them. Oh man, she was not a happy camper, but yeah, we live in the country.
Yeah, I do recall that conversation between you and Stuart, pedantical fart that he is. I mean, he's not technically wrong. They're not A1 or A2 clones.
He's not wrong at all. Stock. He's not wrong at all. It's just that was to actually go down the real route of doing it was, well, one, it would be incredibly expensive, and me and him just wanted to do a couple budget builds for fun. I think we have $550, $600 into these guns because some of them are blemish kits in 2022 when everything's still expensive. So I mean, we're really happy with this stuff because we shop deals and we did this over the course of like 7 months.
in today's economy, a $550, $600 build is pretty hard to beat, even if you're shopping like bargain basement prices.
Yeah, and like we weren't like, you know, licking the bottom of the barrel. We were waiting for sales to come on and stuff like that. So it was like, this was a really fun build we got to do.
Yeah, my wife has asked me one time how much I have into the 2 ARs I built, and I refuse to add it all up, mostly because as long as I don't add it all up, I don't have to admit to her how much it was.
So I think you remember when I built this one a couple years ago, and you told me don't add it all up when I was done, and I did it, and I cried, and you told me you made a mistake.
I told you don't add it all up. Look, and I say that like not being tongue in cheek. I legitimately have lost track of how much I spent building those 2 rifles. I don't want to add it all up. I don't want to do it. It's like, how much do you have into any other firearm in this safe? When I start talking about, you know, change the grips and adding a light onto the rail and freaking buying magazines, which by the way, when you have a CZ addiction, magazines are freaking expensive.
Well, that's your fault for being a hipster.
Yeah. Look, beard, IPA, I'm a hipster, I shoot CZs. Like, lay it on me. What joke do you think I haven't heard before, guys?
All right, Biden voter.
Oh, that's dirty. That's awful. Not totally true either, because most of the hipsters would vote third party.
Yeah.
Out of their sense of moral superiority.
They're either going to vote Libertarian or Green Party, depending on which spectrum they're on.
I've been an anarcho-libertarian, so before somebody gets all pissy about my jokes, I'm poking fun at myself. Y'all can all calm down with yourselves for a minute.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The show was super cool to do. I really, really hope it does good, because, like, you know, how these things usually work, if you've watched any of the other like competition style shows, like, you know, Forged and Fire, the original Top Shot, like, so was their other shooting style show. And then even like some of the, like, anything the History Channel does with the competition, first season's always let's see if this works, and let's hope it works. Season 2, okay, it worked. Let's experiment a little. Let's try some stuff. Let's go wild. Season 3, they do a championship round. They do a runner-up round. They do the person who got knocked out. It's like, that's when they start bringing people back. And so I really needed to get to season 3, because sometimes those cash prizes are like $100,000. I'd like to pay off the house.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it'd be cool to see you get another shot, another opportunity to do this again. Like,
yeah.
It's something that, like, of all the people I know in the firearms community, and there are quite a few of them, they're everything from influencers to trainers to podcasters to competition guys. And like, so few of them get an opportunity to do something like this that's truly like out in the public eye. And it's just, I think it was a really cool opportunity that she landed. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I was talking to somebody totally unaffiliated with the show about this episode that was coming up. And I was like, you know, somebody out there is going to use the word he's lucky, not intending like to discount the work you've done to get in the position to do this. Mm-hmm. But I always bristle at that, because I'm like, no, Eddie's been freaking kicking butt and taking names in firearms for a very, very long time. And it's like, only now are you finally getting, I guess, kind of that public notoriety because of going on History Channel's show that you may not have gotten in the past, even though within the community, you were not a very well kept secret.
Yeah. And that's what's been the cool thing. A good friend of mine that's in the community as well, he basically described it as like, hey, the time of Eddie is now.
Yeah, and like I said, man, I'm really looking forward to seeing where this takes you, where you go from here. I mean, you know, by all means, I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of your shooting career holds for you. Because if nothing else, if this did nothing but put a spotlight on you, then now's your time to just see where that goes. Yeah,
I mean, like, I talked with my friend who's in the community, you know, like, my goal going into the show was never to, you know, like, become this rich, huge person. One, we didn't know how much the cash price coming into it was. It could have been $1,000. It could have been, you know, $500. Like, we didn't know. Like, so we were informed, like, as when we arrived on set, how much the cash prize was for, which was cool. And then, like, when we found out exactly how much it was, like, oh, that's not chump change. my goal going into the show originally was, just be an ambassador for the sport, to try to show people how cool these old guns are, that these guns can shoot still, that, these old war dogs can still run, and then once the competition pile started, the competition spirit in me took over, and I was like, nope, we're going to win this thing.
No, and I have to thank you for trying to be a steward for this community and for the sport, because you sit at this weird intersection of the firearms community at large and the competition space. And I feel like firearms competitions aren't really well understood by the general public. And then the shooting community has almost this cloud hanging over its head because of the association of firearms with the harm that sometimes follows them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I've heard you do your very, very best through WTTA and your own individual efforts to try to show that what you've heard is not a complete story. And you do try to be a good steward for the shooting sports and for the firearms community. And I appreciate that, because let's call it what it is. I'm a bit of a firebrand in the Second Amendment community. I've been uninvited from other podcasts because they heard about something that I said that I didn't take back or, hedge my bets on. I just said, that's just what I believe. And I'm happy to be a firebrand. But it also takes people that are a little more cool-headed than me to try to communicate with normal people. I mean,
and you're not entirely wrong. We also need people like you. That's don't get me wrong. If I could pull up my phone right here and just hey, I want a belt-fed machine gun delivered to my house overnight. You better believe I would do that in a heartbeat. Absolutely, cash buy.
And I could be on your doorstep at about breakfast tomorrow morning. We could break it in together.
Don't get me wrong. I don't know.
Cook bacon on the barrel.
Yeah, I don't know who shoots guns and doesn't want that. Just don't get me started on the hearing protection act. Why do I have to wait almost a year to not blow my hearing out? Again, we need people to push that stuff. There's also there's a whole spectrum though. There's the side of the gun community that doesn't necessarily think they're maybe quote unquote anti-gun or anti-firearms, but maybe they do things that are harmful. There's a guy being passed around his statement from the Oregon thing that got passed. So the reason he voted for this really restrictive measure in Oregon is because he only carries a firearm of 10 rounds. And he wants everyone to only be able to carry 10 rounds because he doesn't want to be outgunned. It's conversations like that. If you didn't know better, me and you could look at him and was that guy's an idiot. But maybe he doesn't know he's an idiot. Now we need to have someone who doesn't just scream at him he's an idiot and actually talk to him and be hey, so one, criminals aren't going to follow the law. Two, you're putting a restriction on someone who doesn't necessarily need that restriction. You need people to be able to have that talk with the people who maybe think they're pro-gun, who are their actions may not seem it in a sense,
And in the vein of what you're talking about, this is usually where Phil goes absolutely, completely off the reservation ballistic when the conversation about constitutional carry and firearms permits comes up, because I'm very quick to point out that there are people that I wish were not in the economic situation they're in that do not have the means to go out and purchase a $500 Glock and several hundred rounds of ammunition and several magazines, and then pay the state for whatever the training class costs, and then pay the state for whatever the friggin' permit costs, and might have a violent ex-boyfriend waiting to murder them this evening, and they don't have a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months to wait for the state to do a background check on them.
Yeah.
So yes, while we could debate about whether the permit has a good intention, it also has these other consequences where it restricts person A from defending him or herself when they desperately need to, but it does not stop Johnny B. Lawbreaker. Is that Gamora?
Yeah, it's Gamora. Gamora is my black lab.
I thought I recognized that voice. Dad, I want to be on the show too. But it doesn't stop a person who's intent upon, committing crime or hurting someone from doing whatever they're going to do. Because if a person's going to murder, they're probably going to do anything else up to murder without too much of a second thought. And I get into those conversations with people. I just try to get them to understand, you are there have been documented cases where a person waiting for a background check for concealed carry permit was assaulted. It's documented. It's happened. You can't call it a straw man. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's going to happen again.
Hey Phil, I've been wanting to do this all night, so I'm going to put on my my social worker advocacy, gun rights advocacy hat, and we're going to kickstart Phil real quick. So let's have some fun real quick. So to answer your question,
that's the end of the show. Good night, guys.
To answer your question, Gillian, yes, we can do both. But here's the thing, like he's talking about the people that it hurts these people. So the social worker in me is all about, trying to make sure that we don't always trample on the people who are the downtrodden. Usually the people that get downtrodden are the lower socioeconomic classes. I'm not saying lower socioeconomic classes always people of color, other races other than side of white. In bigger cities, it happens to be the majority of that. Now, there are definitely poor whites, just like there are poor blacks, poor Asians, or anything. But it's generally, though, these laws go after certain demographics, and it's usually the poor or the minority. And they sometimes go after both. And the state of North Carolina, in order to we have one of the least restrictive in the sense of pistol purchase permits. But in order to buy a pistol, it's the same background check that you have to do like anywhere else. But you have to go to the sheriff first. The reason why is that you have to pay him $5, and it was. But he also has the ability to say, nope, you don't get a gun. And the reason for that was to keep black people from owning pistols. And most gun laws these gun laws are rooted somewhat in racist origins. And a lot of people that you can debate that if it's true or not. Actually, no, you can't debate that because it's proven. It's in history. It was done the Reagan laws back in the thing, they stopped the Black Panthers. Yes, I understand Reagan is the godfather of the Republican Party. He's not as pro-gun as you think he is.
Yeah. And since you went down that road, even if someone wants to have an argument about the fact that it was targeting racial minorities, even if we want to have that argument, somebody else can have it, because to me it's almost irrelevant. And I say it's almost irrelevant because whether or not it's relevant, it's still a way for the law enforcement officer to target any group of people or any individual person he doesn't think should have constitutional right to own a firearm. So whether or not he's using that to target people of color, white people, poor people, rich people, or any other group of people, it's still equally wrong. That's why a lot of times when I get into that debate, I just cut right to the middle of, does it matter what group he's discriminating against? He's discriminating against a group, therefore it's wrong. So let's just take the whole argument, because there's going to be that one person that wants to argue about, well, it doesn't have a racist origin. Okay, throw it out the window. It's still a way to discriminate. We shouldn't be discriminating against people based on arbitrary criteria. Just me that out loud. Yeah, and
and don't get me wrong, I will admit that there are some of the laws in the books are valid. Okay, I'm not going to say we need to throw out every law in the books. I know I'm taking a bold stance saying that. I know you may not necessarily agree with that, but the reason I'm talking about is if you beat the ever living crap out of your wife, I don't think you should have access to a gun, because I don't want you to kill her. I think she should be able to get that gun immediately so she can stop your butt. But it's stuff. The fact that these laws exist and the fact that these things, they keep pushing these things to, we'll use red flag laws. And I know they're very controversial for multitude of reasons.
For lots of reasons.
The one that I look at is the same reason I said earlier with the New York Safe Act. I want you and I want my community to be healthy. I want to work myself out of a job. I ran EMS and I know how to work construction. I will find a way to pay the mortgage. I don't want to work therapy. I want my community to be so healthy that I work myself out of a job. Realistically, that's never going to happen. But here's the thing. I want the local community to have the ability to not have to come to me to get help. I want them to feel safe to open up to people and not have to worry about if I talk to my neighbor that I'm having these thoughts or I'm having this hard time, that my butt's going to be hauled off into jail and I'm going to lose every right I have.
Yep. And I also default back to the idea, not just in the realm of gun laws, but all laws, because again, anarcho-libertarian, non-aggression principle, victimless crimes, y'all can go do Google foo and figure out based on those search terms where I fall on a lot of issues. But I always go back to the idea that
middle right is usually where you're at.
Yeah, anywhere from middle right to about 4 millimeters away from anarchy. Just really, it really depends on how much faith in humanity I've lost on that particular day. Because since you brought it up, politically, I'm not an anarchist. I have friends that are anarchists. I love them to death. I think they're a little misguided. But they're good people, and we have really inventive, hard, awesome conversations about political social theory. I just don't get on board with anarchism because I've seen
what anarchism would do. Yeah.
Well, I've seen places in the world with no functioning government, no law, no police, no fire, no EMS, no schools, no government, nothing.
Yeah,
and
you played in the sandbox for too long.
Yeah, well, it becomes the strongest have the most rights.
Mm-hmm.
And in a situation like that, I can tell you that racial, religious minorities, women, and children come out on the short end of that stick almost every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it works out. The biggest person with the biggest stick and the most buddies is going to win the argument. And if they don't think you're supposed to have rights because you don't look like them or pray like them, then you just either tuck in line or die.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that with my own eyes. And I know that's what anarchism comes to. It's like, it's the same argument I have with anarchists and I have with communists. And communists are like, well, or socialists. They're like, we can all just live in this little hippie commune. We can all share our stuff and we don't have to have private ownership and yada, yada. And it'll be utopia. And then the anarchist says, well, I don't want anybody telling me what I can do. We can all self-govern and this and the other, blah, blah, blah. And they're both wrong. They're both wrong. They're wrong because the anarchist doesn't understand that tyranny of the majority or tyranny of the strong amounts to the same problem. And the socialist doesn't seem to understand that human beings left to their own devices will create a system of government by freaking accident inside of a week. Like if you have a family, what command structure do you typically see? You see a quote unquote monarchy, husband and wife or husband, whatever they are the co-rulers. And then the children are, the serfs, the princes, the princesses, the whatever the relationship is. And if you have a larger group, you usually have a matriarch or a patriarch that kind of sits over all those individual families and they create a tiered monarchy. Or you just put a bunch of people, put 30 people in the middle of nowhere, they're going to elect a tribal elder or a council of elders almost immediately because you have to have human beings install and create systems of government as a function of humanity. So the idea that we can have no government doesn't work. It's antithetical to humanity. But you got me started down that road.
Hey, Mom, can you get him another shot? I want to kickstart this engine again.
No, my cough drops are wearing off, and I am fighting a bit of a head cold. But no, I mean, that's what I was saying earlier was like, I look at every law in the context of there is no law so minor, so piddly, that some agent of the state somewhere is not prepared to murder you to enforce it. Not a popular opinion, but that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And also, every law we adjudicate and put on the books is another opportunity for law enforcement and the citizenry to have an altercation, and some of those are going to end poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it as every time we're going to have a new law, whether it's guns or jaywalking, we should ask ourselves, is this really serious enough that it needs to be dealt with legislatively? And if we're going to deal with it legislatively, are we utilizing the method that is the most targeted and the least restricted to people's freedom so that we don't create more problems than we tried to solve?
You have a present at the door, apparently.
Beer drop at the door. Sorry. I'm surprised she didn't just walk it on in here.
Oh yeah, me and you have had our I don't want to say arguments because we're not like enemies in their discussions. I mean, like it's no secret I'm very much a centrist. I have political views that usually like somewhat left of center, depending on how you want to view center. It might be right of center, and then like the hardline views that I have that are left and right are gun rights and women's rights. It's like they're extreme opposite ends, and unfortunately, there's not really a political party that like matches my identity. So like it's hard to like describe who I am. That's why I would say centrist. Yeah,
I usually refer to myself as confounding. Because like even back when I identified as a quote unquote Republican, I still bucked Republicans, like other friends of mine that were Republicans, super hard. Like when gay marriage came up, I literally had a husband and husband like tell me how surprised and impressed they were that I was so pro gay marriage. And I'm like, hold on a second. Never said I was pro gay marriage. I just said I didn't think the government had a right to tell you can't get married. Like there's a difference between outwardly supporting something and saying, what business is this of yours? And like, that is where I tend to go. That tends to be my default position is, does the state even have a right to exist in this space?
My favorite argument for that is a long time ago, one of my EMS partners, he actually was my roommate, and he was gay. And so I lived with him and his own boyfriend. And his argument for gay marriage was the best thing ever. He says, our economy's in shambles. Lesbian weddings will fix everything. Have you ever been to one? They're extravagant. It's like if they want to pay extra tax at the end of the year, let them. I was like, that is the best argument I've ever heard in my entire life.
I actually had one friend tell me, why should gay people be exempt from being pestered endlessly about when they're getting married? And very tongue-in-cheek, but kind of funny at the same time. Like, I mean, you do have a good point. Sorry, Mom, I can't get married. It's illegal. But, why not let them be as miserable as the rest of us are?
Yeah, that's definitely true.
No,
so
I guess
is there any other questions? Stuff I know, like some of the Patreons had questions. I forgot to write a list. I just remember the ones that Josh had.
Nah, I mean, that was really the only thing that stuck with me. I know a lot of people really wanted to just hear like the story of like how this came to be and what your experience was. And I mean, like I said, watching the episode for me was super cool because like I have enough of an education of what you're doing to like recognize that it wasn't as simple as it was made out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get some of the best marksmen in the country, if not the world, together, they can make really difficult stuff look simple. But then somebody who has actually tried to do some of that stuff is like, oh, that's not very easy because I couldn't make that shot.
Yeah, my ego did come out slightly. I was there's a couple forums that I visit, and I saw someone talking about the shows. Oh, cool, what are they saying? And like one guy was talking a lot of crap about me. My ego totally came out, and I was like, so I just dropped casually in the forum. I was like, hey, so this is my address. Where do you want to challenge? And he tune totally changed, and I was like, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I was like, man, my ego got the best of me in that moment.
Yeah. Eddie'd.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us, man. It was a cool experience. It was cool for me, like knowing you, to watch that and be like, oh God, that's Eddie. Look at him go. It's a weird experience because there's people out there who are going to watch this after having watched that and be like, wow, it's really cool to see like behind the camera more of who you really are, your real personality. And for me, it's the exact opposite because like I've known you for years and to watch you do that, it's like, that's my boy. That's so cool.
My wife likes to say that she's now married to because of the sponsorship, she's now married to a professional athlete TV star.
Professional athlete TV star is definitely like a better title than married to a professional podcaster, which is that's what I throw at my wife every time she gets like, anytime I'm up to the crack of dawn working on a podcast, trying to get out on time. Cause like, I hate missing deadlines, and she'll roll her eyes and be like, honey, it's not that big a deal. And I'm like, you're the one that wanted to be married to a professional podcaster. Technically,
you didn't start until after you were married.
I was going to say that. Technically, I didn't start this after we got married, and I would hardly call myself a professional. I am an enthusiastic novice, as with most things. But definitely thanks for coming on, man. And
yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Oh, look, we are sitting here with bated breath, waiting to see where you go from here. And I know you're going to keep in touch because, quite frankly, I blow your phone up and aggravate you at least 3 or 4 times a week anyway. So, it's not like you're going to
you guys have a nasty habit of like me getting out of a couple sessions and seeing like 60 messages in the thread. I'm like, I give up. I just hit to the bottom and see what we're talking about.
Yeah, one of these days what you got to do though is you got to scroll through slow enough that if you see the memes, you don't miss those, because usually those are extraordinarily inappropriate.
And what we're talking about, guys, because I'll plug it, is the Patreon, the Patreon thing. Just join it. It's a couple bucks a month here or there. I mean, it helps make this show possible. They don't use it on guns and ammo. Like, trust me, we've been begging them to do it, so we get them. They don't do it. It just helps to make the show better. So do it. Come in, and you get to hear my spiel, what you get to do to Phil. And I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, Jesus. If you become a patron, you do support the show. And no, we do not spend the money on PMags and guns, although I would love to be at the point where I could like embezzle the hell out of funds and, buy cool stuff like that. Unfortunately, most of it winds up getting used for like equipment updates and running costs, and occasionally, maybe in the near future, stuff that Andrew and I are going to buy and then destroy for scientific purposes.
Everything's good for science.
Well, you know the difference between a science experiment and effing around, right?
Recording the results?
Exactly. As the only difference between science and effing around is recording the results. So like Andrew and I have been talking about purchasing a couple of products and testing them. And the testing is going to destroy / use up the product. So there will be nothing left to give away. And I don't know. It's stuff we've talked about doing, but that's one of those things that we can only do if patrons chip into the tip jar and help us out with it, because let's face it, I'm not a rich man based on my day job, and this doesn't make me rich either. So every little bit y'all chip in helps. I do appreciate the listeners and the patrons. Eddie, I appreciate your time. And I mean, I would say, where can everybody find you? But you're not a podcaster. And
I mean, they can find me on Instagram. That's I represent a lot of this, my organization on that. So it's very easy. Can I drop it in chat? No, I cannot. It'll say it. Maybe you can spell it out there, but it's at Curry Tuck Kid is where you can find me. But it's CURRITUCK_kid, as in like KID, and that's how you find me on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is where you'll see all my shooting stuff. Twitter is where you'll find all my like mental health stuff. So if you want to talk about mental health and guns, follow me on Twitter. If you just want to talk about, I mean, there's mental health stuff on Instagram too. Like, I don't shy away from who I am, but the more like NSSA shooting results, cool stuff, or like, hey, I'm hanging out in the top of a stand, I'm getting bit up by mosquitoes Saturday morning. Now there's snowing that evening, because that happened Saturday. It was 72 in the morning at 6 a.m. and it was like 21 degrees that evening. I don't want to talk about North Carolina weather. I'm tired of it.
Come down to Louisiana. It's just like that, but bigger mosquitoes.
I mean, those are our state birds here.
Yeah. Well, Eddie Davenport, the ultimate marksman. We'll see you around, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.